Hello and welcome to Number by Color. My name is Todd. That's Mac. And today I am very excited to talk to you about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I was debating whether or not I wanted to do a normal review video for this, and I decided not to because I feel like it would have been very hard for me to do that because I feel I have like a strong feeling about spoilers, and I know I've done review videos in the past with a lot of game footage. Normally I try to do the first 10 hours of a game, depending on the length of the game. I try to do like the first part of the game normally, so I don't spoil too much of it. But for this, it was weird for me because I feel like any gameplay footage is more of a spoiler for people who have played the original versus people who haven't played the original, who don't know either way what I'm showing them. So for that sake alone, I decided not to do a normal review. Plus, I feel like, I don't know, I kind of want to try other things here and there, other formats of talking about games. I don't strictly just want to review them. And this was one of the cases where I thought maybe I would just talk about my feelings about the game and things that I liked and didn't like, which obviously is what a review is. But I don't know, something about the review format, I felt like I couldn't figure out the way that I wanted to do that in that style that I have been. So anyway, all that being said, let's get into the review. So normally my reviews are split across a couple different aspects of a game, like the story, the gameplay, the art and sound, and the trophies. And I'm going to go through each of those sections for this game, but it might not be as cohesive as normal. I usually write a script for my videos, and I didn't want to do that for this because I wanted it to just be more of like a conversation, kind of like I'm just talking to you. I'm not reading something. I'm not like pre-planned. I mean, I have the thoughts in my head, obviously, and I have a couple of notes here I might be referencing, but overall, I just wanted it to be sort of an off-the-cuff conversation thing. So this is, like I said before, this is more of an audio video rather than a visual video, which I guess is kind of weird, but I know a lot of people like myself like to put on a video and just listen to it. So this is one of those videos. You don't have to watch me talk about the game, but you can if you want to, I guess, but it's more intended for listening. So let's talk about the story first. The story of Final Fantasy VII Remake is obviously kind of known to a lot of people, especially people who played the game. If you played the original game, you will be familiar with most of what happens in this story. This is sort of an expanded version of the original game. You might know this remake takes place in the town of Midgar, and that is about the first 5 or so hours of the original game. This game spans its entirety in that space, and I'll mention now it took me about 42 hours to beat the game. I did pretty much everything that there was to do that I was able to do in a first playthrough. As you beat the game, you unlock hard mode, which gives you more replay options if you want to do that. I've been playing in hard mode. I think I'm at about 63 hours of playtime now, and I've done a little bit more than half of a second playthrough in hard mode. So that gives you maybe a little bit of perspective about how much time you'll get out of playing this game if you want to do everything it has to offer. Anyway, back to the story. The story is kind of basically a more fleshed out version of the original game. In my mind, it's kind of like going from watching a movie adaptation of a book to reading the book. It's like a lot of the beats and characters are the same, but there's more of them. There's more to them in the book. So this is sort of like that. It's sort of like taking the beginning of the original game and expanding it out, adding more characters, sometimes adding more for some existing characters to do, which kind of makes them more endearing. I will say Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse play a really big part in the story of this game, and yeah, it's just their characters are much more fleshed out. They are more likable. They are more endearing. There's more to them, and I really appreciate them a lot more as characters now. Whereas in the original game, they were just sort of there to fill out the roster of Avalanche, and here they are actual human beings that you care about. And before I go on, I should have said this up front. I will probably be spoiling some things in this game. If you want an idea, if you're just here for an idea of whether or not you should play this game, based on my opinion of the game, if that's something that you care about, I would say if you like action RPGs and you like good stories, I think this game is really good. I've heard from many people who don't play Final Fantasy games that they really like this game a lot. I also like this game a lot, but I'm a huge Final Fantasy and JRPG fan, so take that for whatever that's worth. I think anybody who likes action RPGs would really have a lot to like in this game. So from now on, I may be mentioning spoilers, but I'm going to try not to do too many spoilers, but I'm just saying for the sake of your like emotional well-being, just being on edge, waiting for spoilers to happen. If you're worried about that, you should jump off now, play the game, maybe come back after that. But definitely, if you're interested in action RPGs or Final Fantasy, this is a really good starting point for that series. Okay, so we have a couple other new characters that I do want to talk about a little bit, who maybe didn't really contribute as much as I would have expected to the story. The first being Roche, another soldier, soldier member. It's kind of weird talking about that. Another member of Soldier who you meet on the way to Jesse's parents' house, which I'll talk about them in a minute. So Roche is kind of an eccentric, really kind of hyped up, energetic member of Soldier who starts chasing after you. You fight him a couple of times, and I like the character. I was hoping he would come back. He's only really in it for that chapter and that fight, and then you don't really see him again anywhere in the game. So it's a little bit strange, and I wish there was more of him in the game. But I understand what he's doing there. I just wish there was more of him. I'm hoping he'll come back in future games, because it seems like he was set up to be kind of a recurring character. So hopefully we will see more of him later on. Another character, or two, I guess, that I want to mention is Jesse's parents. Now, I've heard some people talk about them as being unnecessary. I liked that there was that side of Jesse and Biggs and Wedge, rather, just having more of the non-Avalanche characters in the game that we got to meet, that it gave more of a life, I guess, a personality to Midgar, and it really showed kind of the difference between the upper plate and the lower plate, the slums. And I thought it was a nice touch, and I understand why you're there. You're stealing an ID, a Shinra ID from her dad, and I mean, it makes sense to me why they would have it. Some people, I guess, maybe didn't like that. It's kind of like derailing the story slightly, but I like it. It makes sense in the context of the story. Jesse's going to get more explosives, essentially, so we need to go into Shinra to get them. It makes sense. And I liked that, yeah, we got to see another aspect to these people other than just they are kind of eco-terrorists or, whatever, just members of this Avalanche group. Other than that, the story, I feel like overall, I really enjoyed what they did with the story and the characters. I don't want to go too in-depth with what the story itself was, because a lot of people are talking about that. You can experience it for yourself when you're playing the game. But, Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, Aerith, and even Red 13 to an extent, they're all portrayed really well. They're characterized really well. The voice acting is really good. There's just so much that I feel like they got right, that Square got right about this game. It's kind of mind-boggling, because there was so much hinging on this remake, and I feel like they really kind of nailed it from a story perspective. I mean, we knew it was going to be a condensed version of the original game, or rather just that subsection of the original game, but I feel like what they added really kind of expanded everything, and it felt like a good game. I guess now I'll briefly mention the ending, which I know is like a point of contention for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people just need time to process it, and part of it is we need to see what the next game is before we can really know for sure how this ending actually works or doesn't work. But Some of the changes toward the end I didn't like that much, and I guess I'll be a little bit spoilery here, so I'm sorry. But in the original game, you break out of the cell at Shinra HQ, and there's a trail of blood leading upstairs. You go upstairs, and President Shinra is laying dead, in his chair. Sephiroth had come and killed him, and I guess stolen Jenova. And that's all you see. That's the last thing you see of President Shinra. He's just dead in a chair. So in this game, I feel like because Shinra had been characterized a lot more throughout the earlier sections of the remake, they wanted to give him a better send-off than just him being suddenly dead, because that's not really a good payoff for what the characters had been going through, as far as like their names being kind of dragged in the mud and him just being involved in all their plans from the beginning. So I understand why they wanted to add more with him. I feel like I don't fully know how I feel about it. I liked the eeriness and creepiness of him just being dead because Sephiroth had come and kill him, and we never actually saw Sephiroth come and kill him. That was a really cool, eerie aspect of the original, but I do understand why the remake had to do what it did, or why they chose to make it do what it did, where he's still alive. Barrett and Tifa and Cloud, Kit, they get a couple final words with him before Sephiroth comes and kills them, or him, Shinra. And we do actually see Sephiroth here physically. He's there. He kills Shinra. We fight a version of Jenova, which I think is a hallucination or something like that, which I guess makes sense as sort of one of the final bosses. Overall, I don't know that I cared about fighting Jenova. It kind of makes sense. I'm not really against it or mad about it, but it was a little weird. Barrett getting stabbed by Sephiroth did throw me for a loop for a second, because I was like, because when you're playing through it, you're like, what are they going to change? I guess anything is kind of on the table. They're changing some things. Those whispers have been throughout the entire game. Those were not in the original. So you're like, okay, what are they changing now? So Sephiroth stabs Barrett, but then you realize the whispers kind of revived him, or kept him maybe from dying completely. So yeah, that was an interesting change. And then the very, very end, where you kind of fight the whispers and defeat them, and now it's sort of like fate has been rewritten or destroyed, I guess, in a sense, where things that had happened in the future in the original game may not necessarily happen now in the future of the remake games, and things that happened in the past, like with Zack dying and Cloud, kind of taking him and taking his sword back to Midgar. Now Zack is sort of carrying Cloud back to Midgar, and I'm not sure how that's going to affect the story. I'm sure it's going to affect it in some way. I'm not convinced that it's going to change everything completely. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're kind of doing this to sort of tease us and say we could do this if we wanted to. Maybe some other things are going to change, but I don't think the fundamental aspects of the game are going to change. At least I hope they're not. And I hope the big reveals later on, or at least the big events later on, are still going to happen. I hope so. I'm really hopeful. I don't want them to change that, because it's sort of, I don't know, I feel like it's sort of fundamental to what Final Fantasy VII is, though I will understand, probably, at least to some degree, why they might feel the need to change some things, because I guess experiencing a game, or rather, when they remade the game, they didn't want to do it exactly the same, because fans who played the original game might get bored because they already know everything that's going to happen. So they wanted to add some new things to keep it a little bit spicy for people who have already played the original. Although I think people who haven't played the original, they don't know what the story is necessarily. So, I mean, keeping it the same doesn't really affect anybody except people who had played it already. So I don't know what the thought is about that, but I kind of trust Square at this point to continue with the story as it was, maybe making small changes here or there to wherever they feel like maybe they could have improved on the narrative since the original has come out. Maybe the whispers is sort of a trick for them to be able to change things that maybe didn't work that well the first time. So I guess that's a clever idea, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, next up, I want to talk a little bit about the gameplay and the battle system. This is pretty much the main part of this game that I think everybody was worried about. I don't think people were really that worried about the story necessarily because it already existed. We already knew what it was. But when we heard that they were changing it from turn-based RPG to action RPG, everybody was like, what? How is that going to work? I just wanted a remake with better graphics. I wanted the same game with better graphics. But now I got an action game instead of a regular turn-based RPG. So here's what I got to say about that. It works perfectly. It's really, really fun. And it's really cool. The way they melded action and turn-based combat gameplay, it's like flawless. I've never even thought of this. Whoever thought of this system should be rewarded and highly praised, because this is a really cool way to merge both aspects of RPG, action and turn-based, that it works so well. And I really want Final Fantasy 16 to be a return to turn-based, because after 15, I feel like it just didn't click in the same way that it had in the past with Final Fantasies, for me at least. This clicked a lot more, and I feel like I want 16 to be turn-based, but if it's not, it would be really nice if it was more like Final Fantasy VII Remake than Final Fantasy 15, because this was like really, really good. And one part of the system that I wasn't quite sure how it would work was the Materia System, though I really guess I didn't need to be worried about it, because there are a lot of games with a similar kind of system where you equip an item and then you can use the magic. I don't know. I thought it really worked well. One thing that kind of bummed me out about the original game, and it kind of bummed me out here too, is that you don't really get accessories that are good, that are really good, that have a lot of materia slots. It's really only limited to the weapons here. So in a way, it kind of felt a little bit limited with the loadout you could do with the materia, especially since there was like a highly reduced number of materia types or different whatevers than the original game. But overall, I think it works really well, and there is a lot of customizability to it. So I'm not really complaining that much. I just think it's a complaint I think I had from the original game, so it's still there, but it's not really that big of a deal because it didn't really break the game for me. But yeah, equipping materia and then leveling it up, that's like a system that is really satisfying and it's a lot of fun. Another thing that I really wasn't expecting from when we first heard that they were remaking the game is that we could upgrade weapons now. That I might have mentioned this before in the past. That is like one of the aspects of RPGs that like it kind of like turns me on a little bit. But being able to upgrade your weapons is really cool. Every time you level up, you get SP. You can use it to upgrade different little nodes on your weapons that either adds more health, more MP, better defense, better magic defense, more attack power, all these kinds of things. And it's such a fun system. And at first I thought this is a little bit limited, but then the more you play and the more weapons you get, it's just so much fun going in and having Chadley reset the weapons when you get, like 5, 10, 15 more SP that can unlock more stuff. Then you reset the weapons and then you go back and kind of respec all your weapons and see like which one now might be better than the others. It was just a lot of fun. I really, really like that. That's a really cool aspect of the game. I think that probably helped me a lot to enjoy my experience with the battle system, because you're constantly assessing what weapons and what loadouts you want to use, and it's just, oh my gosh, it is so much fun. So much fun. Another aspect to the gameplay, I guess, is the addition of side quests. And there are side quests in the original Final Fantasy, but definitely not really that many in Midgar. There might be some things that you can do that are sort of additional to what the story beats are in Midgar in the original, but here we add a lot of different side quests. I think there were like 26 or something. We had like 26 total different side quests that we could do, and these are, I've heard people say that they're like fluff. I wouldn't necessarily consider them to be fluff because they kind of expand different portions of the different sectors of Midgar, and also you don't have to do them. But the rewards that you get from them are pretty good, and I think they're worth doing because it sort of adds more, I think it just adds more personality and charm to the game to do these side quests. I really like them. The characters, I mean, they're kind of generic characters sometimes, but they're not all really intricate, complex characters, but a lot of them are actually characters that you kind of get to know a little bit over time, so I feel like it still works even when it might not completely hit the mark. I feel like they're still good and worthwhile, and like I said, they're worth doing because the rewards are pretty good. I mentioned the battle system already, and I want to go back to it a little bit because I feel like I didn't talk about it in depth or as much as I wanted to, but having to switch between characters because of different character skill sets was really clever, and I think it works really well. And another thing I want to say is all the characters feel really good to play, and they all feel like they have a purpose. I never found myself focusing on one character over the other. I think maybe in the beginning I was using Cloud the most because I thought, okay, I'll just use Cloud and maybe switch to the other ones when I have to. But, you know, over time, everybody has their value in the battle system. Cloud is a heavy attacker. Barrett is good for long range. He's good at staggering. Tifa, her combo attacks are really, really good and useful, especially when an enemy is staggered. If you use the triangle special with Rise and Fall and Omni Strike, they're really effective in increasing the damage that the enemy takes while it's staggered. So I was really pleased. And obviously Aerith is good at building she's also a ranged attacker. She's good at building the stagger meter, and she has a cool Tempest attack that I like. But yeah, all of them are really unique and interesting and different, and I think they all work really well. And I do want to mention that, and I'm like kind of like blabbing a little bit here. I'm sorry. I don't have it with me here in front of me, but I did use the back button attachment a lot playing this game to switch the characters. I found it really, really helpful and really, really useful in fighting, especially intense battles when you're fighting and you need to switch characters really fast. I programmed the right back button as the up arrow and the left back button as the down arrow to be able to switch through characters, because normally you'd be fighting using the analog sticks to move around, and if you wanted to switch characters you had to press up or down on the directional pad, and you'd have to take your finger off the analog pad so you had to stop moving for a second. And I found that with the back button attachment you could still be moving and click the button and switch characters, and it just, I don't know, it made it really, really helpful. This is like the second or third, maybe the fourth game that I've used this button attachment for, and I think it's really useful and I like it a lot. And this isn't really, obviously this is not like endorsed or sponsored by Sony, but I think it's really helpful, and it's a little bit pricey. I think it's like $30 maybe, but so far for the games that I've used it for, it's come in really handy, especially for this game. I think it's really worthwhile. And if you were interested in it, I definitely would say to check it out because very helpful, very useful, for sure. All right, let's talk about the music for a little bit, shall we? I don't want to talk too much about this because I feel like it's such a cliche a little bit to talk about the music of Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy has some of the best video game music ever, I would say. And here it's like it really shines through the full orchestration. In some cases, the EDM sort of house versions of some of these songs too really works well. And I don't know, it's just, the music is so iconic, I feel, that it definitely heightens the emotions. Just hearing it really kind of stirs your soul, or at least it stirs my soul. I'm probably nostalgic for some of this music, but I think people who don't know it would still really like it too, because it's just so good. It's so well composed. Nobuo Uematsu, he's a musical genius, and it just works so well. I can't really say enough. I don't really have the words for it. It's just so, it's so good. The music is probably one of the best aspects of the game. but that's just because the music is always one of the best aspects of the game in Final Fantasy. It's classic, it's timeless almost, and it immediately grabs your nostalgia the first second you hear it, and I'm really, really pleased with the music in this game. Yeah, so that's kind of it. I don't know if I want to say too much or have too much more to say. I really love this game. It's really good. If you haven't played it, you should play it for sure. There are a couple issues, I guess, graphically that I want to talk about as far as presentation goes. The art style is amazing. The character models for all the main characters are incredible. They're impeccable. They look so good. They move so well. Like, their voices sound great with these character models. The mouths move like you would expect them to most of the time. But there is an issue, and I'm sure you've heard it if you've heard people talk about the game before. There's a weird texture issue where a lot of the textures in the environments are kind of bad. In a lot of places, it seems like that part of that aspect of the game wasn't fully completed. It is a little bit weird. It's a little bit jarring. I personally don't mind it that much. I can look past it. I know some people it probably will affect. And by the way, I'm playing on a PS4 Pro on a 4K TV. I'm not guessing that this is like just a normal issue with the PlayStation. It seems like it's a bug with the game. That's how off some of these textures are. It seems like something is wrong with the rendering of some environmental objects where the textures just don't fully load. It is a little bit weird. Like I said, though, it didn't really affect me that much. It didn't bother me that much because the rest of the game still looks good. And I kind of like, I don't know what you would say, but I kind of, in my mind, I justified it because the original had kind of the pre-rendered painting backgrounds. And I feel like, in a way, I can justify this one having kind of blurry textures here and there as an homage to the pre-rendered painted backgrounds. I don't know. I'm sure that's not what they were intending, but in my mind, that's how I'm justifying it. And I don't know. It still works. From a distance, especially, everything looks so nice. There are some chapters and some sections of the game where the textures are way better and way more good. Not way more good. Way more like appealing and looking like they are supposed to look, where it kind of doesn't. It makes what I said before, where I said it seems like a bug, it makes that sound kind of ridiculous, because if some chapters look really good, why don't they all look really good? But maybe it's a timing issue. Maybe it will be patched in the future where this will be fixed, but I don't think it's a problem for me, at least. I don't think it's a problem for most people. I don't think it would deter me from recommending it to everybody that I talk to. So yeah, it's something I want to mention because it's something that exists in the game, but I don't think it's a problem per se. Oh, another kind of cool touch regarding the art is that with the weapons, that like with Cloud's weapon on his back, with Tifa's glove, with Barrett's thing with his gun or whatever, his arm, you can actually see the materia that you have equipped on the weapon. It's really cool and a really nice touch, and I believe it changes based on the type of materia that you have equipped too. So it's really cool. It's a nice little touch, and I really appreciate that level of detail. Okay, so that's it. Those are my thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just really love this game. It's so much fun, and I'm really excited to play the next one. I hope, fingers crossed, I hope it's within the next 2 years. I know they've already started development on it, and they kind of have a lot of things already done as far as the groundwork of the, I guess the way the game, like the underlying game code works. So hopefully it doesn't take them that much longer to figure it out. I know they're still even figuring out what the plan is for how often they're going to come out and what they're going to include and what and how to do all that, but I'm hopeful that it's within the next 2 years we'll get the next one. I'm just patiently waiting at this point. We have so many other games to play from now until whenever, so I'm not really worried about it taking a long time. I just don't want it to take forever, and I don't want there to be like a dozen different parts of this game, but I guess we'll see what happens. But overall, I really like this. I really enjoyed my time with the game. I liked it enough to go back and do most of the trophies, which, by the way, I didn't even talk about the trophies, but the trophies are pretty good, except that you have to play the game a couple of times, which is kind of a pain point for me for a lot of games, but I think they're really fun. Even just the general ones are really cool. The game is fun enough, I think. The battle system is fun enough to go back and play through on hard because it's not quite the same. The challenge is a little bit greater, but in general, yeah, I definitely would highly recommend this. I think anybody who hasn't played the game, if you're watching this, I probably spoiled some of the things for you, but if you haven't played the game yet, I definitely give it a shot. I think you would really enjoy it. Even if you don't really like the story that much, I think the gameplay is strong enough that you would still like the game, even if you didn't really care that much about the story. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I am definitely looking forward to the next one. I can't wait, but there is still so much more to play that I'm not really worried about it taking a long time. So yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. That really helps out the channel as we grow from a meager 19 or however many subscribers. They're not that many subscribers, so please subscribe and like. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and have a good night or day or whatever whatever's happening in your life now. My cats are killing themselves, so I gotta go take care of that. Yeah, I'll see you later.